right? So it's really affecting almost the whole world. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going here. So basically, talking about global commons a little bit more. The book refers to the tragedy of commons, so that it points out a few things, one of which is that rationally self-interest behaviors may also have a destructive collective impact. So that goes back to talking about cars, right? So a lot of folks, particularly here in Kuwait and the United States as well, we drive our own car to work every day. Well, if everyone's driving his or her own car to work, instead of taking public transport, it does really increase the burden on the planet's CO2 emissions, right, carbon dioxide emissions. So we can hopefully try to avoid that in the future by building more and more public transportation systems that really encourage folks to commute together. Also, overgrazing animals on village greens. So a lot of places in the developing world have what they call a village common area, right? So this is somewhere where all the animals go and basically graze. And those areas are being constantly overgrazed due to the fact that there's less and less farmland in the world. Lastly, they mentioned that human behavior also affects ecological systems, right? So a lot of issues there. Talking about farming, talking about production of plastics, big issue. All the waste that we have. You saw her in the video saying, we buy and throw away, buy and throw away, buy and throw away. So this is a very consumerist society in which we live right now. And it's not just Kuwait, it's most Western developed countries, right? There's a big issue right now with what do we need? What do we have to have? Where are these products coming from? When I have the latest iPhone, BlackBerry, whatever, what are the different components that go into those, products? Where are they coming from? Does anyone know where the products are coming from? For example, the main components of iPhone, like the lithium inside? No. Well, a lot of these materials are coming from Congo, the parts of electronics. And the Congo, of course, is constantly in conflict. Right? This is a very conflict-prone zone. And a lot of it has to do with this fight over who controls the mines, who's getting the money from the mines, right? Where is this? Because there's a tremendous amount of money coming from the production of these minerals and metals. And essentially that leads to disagreements, nice way of putting it, but disagreements over who gets the profits, right? So if you look up Congo online, you'll see just a massive amount of literature about the effects of what we call conflict materials. So acid rain is also an issue that affects a lot of the planet. It affects particularly the northern hemisphere, like Scandinavia, UK, Canada. Acid rain essentially is coming from the production of different sulfur compounds going up into the air, and they're essentially combining with cloud material coming back down as rain. But it's not just rain; it's not clean water. Right? It's water that's heavily contaminated with higher than normal amounts of nitric and sulfuric acids. So the effects of that are, if you see pictures, you'll see basically whole forests that look like they've been burned. Okay, the leaves are falling off, the tree bark is essentially disintegrating. So it's very toxic, right, to the natural environment. And it's also toxic to human health. Because essentially when it rains, you're breathing in, right, those acids of decomposed in water. Okay, now we're going to get to the part about oil. So this is the part that really touches Kuwait. So of course Kuwait, as one of the producing countries in OPEC, is very, very important region, right, for the United States and well, it's more for Japan, but Saudis for the United States. The Gulf region is one of the biggest suppliers of oil in the world, right? However, these oil, basically banks or wells, are located in very unstable regions. So the United States is also here militarily, right? There's a lot of military bases in the Gulf region and naval stations to protect these resources. And of course, the recent Iraq War, many people believe, and actually the first Gulf War, were related to the United States' interest of oil, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, as the book points out, the oil resources are going to start running out. You can see here, it's not exactly the same chart I was looking for, but this is figure 12.4 from the book. you can see in 2008, they have the percentage of global sources of energy. So the biggest source right now is crude oil at 30%. The second source is coal, right, which isn't used as much in this region, but it's used in Europe and the States and parts of former USSR. And natural gas is at 19%. And you see the rest of the pie there, essentially, or I think you call it the cake in Kuwait, is basically made up of renewable energy, right? So you see biomass, hydro, other combustible renewables. Nuclear's at 6%, but I think that's going to start going down now with the Fukushima incident. So, if we start thinking about, and you see the graph on the right here where it says projections of energy sources to 2100. You see there's a massive increase in solar and wind use, right? It looks like it's going up to almost 1,000 exajoules. So basically, we're going to start shifting away, and I think it's going to start happening probably in 30 or 40 years, from a massive dependence on oil and oil derivatives to solar, wind, hydro, probably tidal, as we were talking earlier. So this is not going to be something people, governments do willingly, I guarantee you, but it's going to be something, a change or a shift that really is basically forced upon us by the depletion of oil and oil derivatives. So there's not a graph in your book about this, but essentially there's a lot of predictions from both the oil companies, governments, and OPEC alike, that oil will start to be depleted after 2040 in this region. So after 2040, you're going to start seeing a constant decrease in oil that's available for extraction. Of course, it has serious economic, political, and energy implications, not just for this region, but also for the whole world, right? Are there any questions about that? Because that's kind of an important comment, and obviously affects you here. No? Does anyone want to take a stab at how they feel like that might play out a little bit in Kuwait? Do you think this will be something that happens suddenly or happens gradually? Happen gradually? What do you think some of the effects are that you're going to see? What are some of the symptoms you're going to witness in Kuwait? I mean, are you going to see people, trying to be more conservationist in their approach to oil? Are you going to see the government switching from oil to different energy sources?
It's going to be more conservationist because they're opposed to change. They don't really like change that much in Kuwait.
More conservative.
Yeah.
Okay. But how do you think that's going to take shape? Do you think that means they're going to be holding on to oil till the last drop?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think when it's going to be the last resort, then they might switch on to something dramatic all of a sudden.
All of a sudden. Okay, so it'll be kind of what we call a knee-jerk reaction, so it's going to be just very sudden. But what do you think is going to happen when, for example, there's only enough oil, okay, let's say the amount of oil available in oil derivatives is only enough for Kuwait and a little bit of Saudi, let's say. Are you guys going to keep exporting oil to other countries at that point? No, right? Probably not. So at that point it's going to become really domestic resource. And the economy is going to go down. And how is that going to affect people on a day-to-day basis in Kuwait? If people see, the government getting less money, maybe there'll be less jobs in the ministries. Yeah. But as we talked about the other day, she's not here today, but Nana, is that her name? She was asking about this similar question, and we were saying to her, well, basically there is the existence of a permanent fund meaning a fund that's been set up to put in excess profits and revenues from oil to protect Kuwait in the long term, right? This is supposed to be monies that are available to you, and that's again what Severin was basically saying in her video, is that we're the children of today, and you, the parents, who need to take care of us. So this fund has been set up for you, all of you young Kuwaitis. But the question that I've heard a lot of Kuwaitis ask is, will this fund be sustainable in itself? Will it last long term? Will there be enough money in the fund? Is it being invested properly in the right, markets? What do you guys think? Have you heard about this fund?
Yeah.
Some of you have? Okay. Do you think this will be around in, let's say, 50 years?
No.
Maybe not, huh? Okay. So these are things you guys, I think, as young Kuwaiti people need to start thinking about and start kind of investigating. Okay. So shifting gears, Let's see here. What is it? Extend the last slide, and we'll move to the exercise. Basically, this last slide is talking about national commitments to environmental sustainability. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? There are some things we can do to protect the environment. And here, this second to last slide is basically explaining,